Gentlemen, welcome back to the Tiege Hanley Starting a Business, Building a Brand vlog. This one, big number 334. So real quick, I forgot to mention this until later in the vlog, so I'm just gonna do it now. Did you know that Tiege Hanley sells merch? I'm talking uncomplicated t-shirts, I'm talking hats, I'm talking merch. Gentlemen, the problem is that it's really, really hard to find when you're logged into your dashboard. So what I'm gonna do, if you guys are interested in rocking the uncomplicated gear, I'm going to link to down below a link so that you can go directly to the shop. Because like I was in there the other day, I'm like, how many people have bought t-shirts? How many? And I'm like, that's it. And then I started looking, I'm like, you can't find it. It's buried. It's literally like, we hit it. Gentlemen, we got to fix that. But if you're interested in rocking some uncomplicated gear, which I always get a compliment on every time I wear it, you got to check it out. Usually it's women be like, oh, you're uncomplicated. I'm like, yeah. And yeah, right. Anyway, it's funny. A lot of women are like, ooh, I want one of those shirts. A lot of dudes are like, ooh, I want one of those shirts. If you want one of those shirts, hit the link and grab one. They're for sale. So today's topic is just a little bit morbid, right? Because it's weird thinking about dying, right? But it's something that I feel each and every one of you should do in order to show your loved ones how much you care about them. And what I'm talking about is a will or a trust or some type of plan for when you're gone. And the reason why I'm thinking about this is because for the past few months, I have been working on my new will, right? I did one a few years ago, and I'm just gonna be honest. It was one of the hardest things that I did. I was sitting there with my wife at this lawyer's office, and we were going through things, and I broke down. And it wasn't that I was crying because I was worried or scared about dying. It was thinking through everything and just the emotion. Like it was an incredibly emotional thing for me. And but I did it, and I knew that I had to do it because, you know, everybody thinks, oh, one day I'm going to do it. I'm going to put it off. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And what happens if you die, right? Life is fragile. Life is short. But planning and having something in writing and thought through is going to make it not only easier for your loved ones, but it's going to allow you to kind of dictate what happens to your assets, to everything, even your pets. In this new, okay, so let me back up for a second. All right, I did a will, like I said, a few years ago. If I were to die today or tomorrow, it would be a complete cluster. Because, you know, even though I'm like, okay, you know, this percentage of my assets go here or here, it still needs to go through this whole probate process, right? I was uneducated in terms of how it actually works. I thought, hey, you die, everybody gets whatever, we're good to go. Well, probate is basically when you croak, there's a legal thing that needs to happen before all of your assets legally get transferred. And so if I were to die today, right? And even if I said I want my wife to have, you know, my business, Pete and Pedro, keep running it, you know, whatever, she technically couldn't have access to the bank account to everything in order to keep the business running until it went through the probate process. You've got a trustee, and anyway, it's super complex and super confusing. Well, I knew that I wasn't happy with the structure that I currently had in my will. And so I made an appointment with a woman to help me set up a bigger sort of scenario. And it really came down to building a trust. A trust is basically like a legal entity that basically owns your assets. And you can dictate what happens to all. She explained it like a basket. It's like, what assets do you want to put in the basket? Because within this basket, you can designate specifically who gets what as soon as basically you die, right? And so anyway, I know I'm all over the place. It's super confusing. It's still confusing and complex thinking about it. But it's important, and I guess the takeaway, just that I want to, share, is that even though it's weird to think about, it's hard to think about, it's important that you do. Like I said, it's not necessarily about you, you're dead. Like, who knows what happens to us, right? But it's about making sure that you are structuring things so that people that you leave behind that are already dealing with hard things of losing you because you're amazing, right? It makes it easier. And it makes it easier if you've got everything laid out and documented. And so you don't need to spend a ton of money in order to create a will. There are legal documents that you can get like on like LegalZoom and stuff like that. But the more you have, the more assets you have, the more important it is to really kind of spend the money and put together a plan. Because that's kind of the thing, right? And I'm just being honest with you. I now have more assets than I used to. And so what happens to them? Who gets what? It's something that I'm having to think about. And then you add on this whole like death tax thing. So, you know, I don't know if you guys are paying attention much, but when you die, certain amount of assets, like if you have assets, I believe it's like up to like $10 million. Like that gets taxed at a specific rate, I believe. But once it goes over 10 million, then anything above that gets taxed at a different rate. Well, I think the Biden administration wants to drop, instead of like 10 million or 12 million, it's like 4 million or 3 million or whatever it is. It's like, it's drastic and substantial. But the tax rate is like 50%. So if, say, you have $10 million and the first 5 gets distributed to your asset or to your family or whomever you're leaving your money to, that next 50% or that next 5 million gets taxed at 50%. So 50%, $2.5 million, boom, goes to the government. As opposed to, you know, the way that it is now, up to 10 million, and then it kicks in. But tax planning, planning for your death in terms of taxes is also something that, you know, it was never on my radar. And I'm being educated now as I kind of go through this process. Now it's expensive. The thing that I'm having made now is costing me $10,000 to put together. And I'm not saying that to scare you. You can get it done a lot, you know, cheaper than that. But my stuff is real complex with a bunch of like real estate holdings and assets and businesses and entities. And so there's a lot that goes into it. Also having, you know, a wife, step parents, you know, 2 different step parents. I even set up something in my trust that my cats, this is great. If my wife and I die together, my cats get $100,000 basically, that anybody, my mom actually is who I left my cats to, but I'm setting aside $100,000 to take care of any pets that I have when I die. The person who gets them gets the money. And when the animals are dead, she gets to keep the money. And so thinking through, you know, like my mom and my dad, like, okay, like if I die in 15, 20 years from now, you know, they're still alive, they're going to need long-term care. What is the amount of money that they get right now? And then how does it get distributed? And then here's another scenario and something else I'm just telling you. This is all over the place. And once again, I'm sorry for not having my thoughts together well enough, I guess, on this. I just don't, it's complex. And it's hard. It's a lot of information, and I'm still not that educated on it. So part of it is, okay, so say my mom and dad are dead. These are the things, like you've got to plan out, like not just like when I die, what happens if my wife's dead and my parents are dead and my immediate, like what happens then? And so, okay, where do I want my assets to go? The trust can basically say, or I can dictate, I want X number of dollars to go to a specific charity. And so one of the things that the estate planner or the person doing my trust and will said, do you have any charities that you're really like passionate about? I'm like, I wasn't prepared for that. Part of the reason is that I don't necessarily trust a lot of charities. You know, I know that there are good organizations out there doing amazing things, but I've just never really educated myself on them. And so at the time we originally met, I was like, yeah, let's just make it like the local animal, like I love animals, right? We don't have any kids. We'll make it the animal shelter. But then I was thinking, I'm like, well, wait a second. I really love my area. I really love my community, Marietta. And there's this great organization, the Alumni Association for the school system. I'm not going to get into the weeds, but there is the Alumni Association. Basically, they get donations, and then they help like underprivileged kids, you know, with different needs. Like there are a bunch of different like endowments. And so I thought to myself, wait a second, I could set up my own like endowment and specify what the money goes for and help like needy kids. And so I met with the foundation, I met with the chief impact officer for Marietta and found out some really alarming statistics. I am spoiled because in Marietta, when I say like, I love Marietta, I love my Marietta. My Marietta is the, the small little, rich area. Not rich, but it's well off. I came to find out that in the Marietta school system, there are 8,900 children or kids going through it. 40% are black, 40% are Latino, and 20% are white and Asian. 70% of the kids going through the Marietta school system are on government assistance for food. I mean, so it's not like a great, scenario. She was telling me some of these things that really kind of rocked me. They asked me, they're like, well, what's your story? And I'm like, well, I kind of grew up, poor. I was on welfare, had some, abusive stepfathers. Therapy is a big thing for me. And, helping, kids that are in bad situations is something that I'm passionate about. And they're like, okay, we can use this. We can use this to really create an endowment that speaks to what you want and who you want to help. And so, the chief impact officer was there. She was telling me about some of these different programs, some of the needs that they have, and with COVID, it was all about, food. It was about, therapy. They actually have a thing where, they help abused women and children get out of those, houses and put them, or into those situations and scenarios and put them up in better, safer environments. And then, hey, the impact officer was like, because we had so many of these people and so many of these kids, we didn't have enough, mental health resources for them. And so she went to the foundation and was like, hey, I need $3,000 for extra pay for extra therapists and counselors to help these kids that are coming out of abusive situations and relationships and parenting, scenarios. And so like stuff like that. And so I set up an endowment. I gave them some money now, and this is going to be specified in my trust that this is where, a large portion, at least for now, I'd like the idea of setting up a bunch of different things will go. And so anyway, I guess it's been on my mind. I've been dealing with it now. I've been working through it for the past few months. It was a very complex thing, but it's something that's not easy to think about. But it's important that you do. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. It doesn't matter if you just have like no assets, or you've got a little of something, or you've got a lot of something. Setting a plan in place just so that your loved ones know what you want when you die. It's important so that the fighting isn't as contentious, because that's the thing. Death brings out the worst in a lot of people. And when there's money involved and there are people, siblings or parents or children, like it can get weird. And I just would hate for your relatives or your family to be in an uncomfortable situation or predicament because you didn't do the work that you need to do now when you still can. And so I guess that's really the takeaway. I'm going to die. It's going to happen. Like, take it off the table. There are no loopholes yet. And you're going to die too at some point. It's a reality. It's uncomfortable to think about, but it's the reality. And so knowing that, doing the responsible alpha thing is setting up a will and making sure that everything is legally the way that you want it to be when you actually die. Weird to think about, but important you do. That's all I wanted to really say about that. It was rambling, but hopefully some of you, at least one of you, does something responsible and sets something up for your family. All right, so now let me give you a few other quick updates. I actually have a meeting, a dinner. Somebody's coming to take me to dinner. Actually, I'm meeting somebody there. The CEO and founder of this new credit card company called Carrot. It's an influencer like credit card. They've raised like $50 million. I got connected to him. I had a conversation with him yesterday. Somebody was like, hey, would you mind talking to this guy, Will, at Carrot? I'm like, sure. And so he's talking to me. He's like, hey, pitching me. I'm like, I'm good. I love my Amex. I'm good. And on my Amex right now, I spend about $3 million a year personally for just Pete and Pedro. Tiege Hanley has other credit cards that we use there, right? So I'm spending about $3 million a year on my Amex. And so he's talking, he's like, well, what if we gave you like 1.5% cash back? I'm like, okay, that's cool, but it's there's the pain in the ass factor to switch. And you're new, and I'm not really sure. And so he's like, well, what about 2%? I'm like, all right, no, I'm good. Anyway, long story short, he's coming to take me to dinner. Like, I talked to him yesterday. He's like, hey, can I take you to dinner tomorrow night? I'm like, sure. What do you want to talk about? I have no idea. And originally, I was like, I'm not sure. But he's the person that basically founded this company. A lot of big names are involved and invested in this company. Graham Stephan, he's invested in it. Will Smith, even though we talked about him last week, he's an investor. A lot of YouTube bigwigs, they're investors. Like, he's planning on taking this company public, I think, in the next year or 6 months or something. But he wants to take me to dinner. And originally I'm like, dude, I'm not, I don't want to do this. I don't want a credit card, but is there something else you want to talk to me about? And so I'm going to go to dinner. It's one of those scenarios where he's a 27-year-old smart-ass dude that has raised a bunch of money, that has a business. And so surrounding yourself, this is one of the things that I'm trying to do for myself, get out of my comfort zone a little bit. Normally I would say, no, I'm good, but I'm going to go have dinner. He just wants to talk. I don't believe that he just wants to talk. There's always an angle. If he's flying in today, after yesterday's conversation, there's obviously some sales, something going to go down, but I'll let you know what happens and the essence of the phone call. But I'm about to run off to dinner here in the next 15 minutes. Something else, house update. My pipe plan has officially been approved. There is a concrete shortage in concrete pipe though. And so we figured out some things. I'm using a different material. The price. Guess how much it is to move a pipe and to bury it 20 feet down. I got 2 quotes. Guess how much? You won't guess. The first quote was $280,000. I said, what? We need another quote. $180,000. The second quote came in $100,000 less. And I knew it was going to be expensive. I knew that it was going to be expensive to move this pipe. But yeah, 280, that was sticker shock. And anyway, long story short, we're moving forward. We have a breaking ground date of May 9th is the date. So maybe I'll bring the vlog out and be like, all right, we're breaking ground, right? Also, the house plans have been submitted to the city. Everything, we got rejected twice for different reasons. We resubmitted today, everything, so we should be good to go. So we should be cooking here in the next month. But it's been quite the process, and I don't know. I'm kind of ready to get this show on the road. Speaking of show on the road, I got a few minutes left. I think there was 1 or 2 business questions from last vlog. Guys, if you have a business question, down below, start it with business question and ask your question. Another quick update. Tiege Hanley. Oh, I'm going to put this at the beginning of the vlog. Never mind. The first business question comes from our friend Will Kissick. He says, hi, Aaron. I'm curious to what your opinion is on what the best mechanism would be to market B2B, business to business. I'm not sure. Well, I think to answer this question, Will, I need more information. I need you to tell me what type of business. Because based on the business, I feel like that's going to change my answer a little bit. So if you could give me a little more insight, a little more information as to what type of business to business, what are you doing and who are you selling it to, that will help me. In terms of marketplaces and advertising places, if you're a B2B, I think LinkedIn actually is something where a lot of people are starting to get some really good marketing and paid advertising success from advertising on LinkedIn, because you can target very specifically people and businesses. So that's one idea. But do me a favor, Will, down below, I need more info, and then I'll be happy to hook it up with my limited advice and knowledge. But let me know. That literally is the only business question. Everybody's talking about how I shouldn't be talking about Will Smith. Whatever. Come on, man. Anyway, there's one more question from our friend Kranlarj Sinjala. What's up, brother? And he says, sir, how to deal with very, very smart and powerful people, but intention of this kind of people are not good. You've had another question like this, how to deal with unsupportive people. Man, bro, here's my advice to you. You need to surround yourself with better people. If you find yourself around all these people that you're really worried about how they're going to, you're hanging out with the wrong people. And so my only advice to you is get better friends. Who you surround yourself with is going to be one of the most important things that you do, not only for your professional career, but also your mental sanity. My life changed for the better when I got around Antonio Centeno because he opened my eyes, and we together built this network of amazing entrepreneurs that were not only incredibly smart, they're just great dudes. When you find your tribe, when you find people that are like you, it's amazing how much better, how much more productive, and how much more successful you become. Gentlemen, you are amazing. If you've got a business question, I need more down below. Ask it, business question started, and then ask your question. Next week, we'll get to more of yours. I will also give you an update on my dinner with the CEO of Carrot, the credit card company for influencers that wants to take me to dinner that I met yesterday. He flew into town, which is a little weird, but am I that? I'm not that interesting. But anyway, to be continued. Gentlemen, you're amazing. We love you.